Welcome back to the musings of an old Maverick, which happens to be me. Well, today I have pulled out a very interesting story from the archives of my life to share with you. A story which I'm going to entitle Fears of Guilt. Now, from the time I was born, I had a crazy craving for dates. Dates. I love dates. Every time I'd see a bowl of dates, I would bring the entire roof down till I was allowed to sink my teeth into them. And here's the thing, my parents realized that every time I either got mischievous or I got naughty, they would just place a plate of dates in front of me. And then I would be blissfully spending all my time and energy in devouring them, slowly, steadily, and enjoying every minute eating them. I didn't know that one day these very dates, which actually controlled me from being mischievous or naughty, would eventually make me do something so mischievous that the consequences of it would be a lifetime learning. So one day, I must have been around 11 or 12 years old. My friends and I, we were playing marbles outside the door of our home in Calcutta. Calcutta is a place where I was born and brought up, and it still is my city of joy. So we were playing marbles, and suddenly this seller with a basket on his head filled with dates passes us by. And I smelt it before I could see it. And I went ballistic. So I went and stopped him and I said, I want some dates. So that guy said, you have to pay for it. Sure. So I said, how much would be a packet of dates? So he said around 3 rupees. 3 rupees was quite a bit of money those days. So I looked in my pocket and, well, I just had a few changes left from my pocket money. My friends didn't have any money. And I said, no way, I am going to get myself some dates. So I tootled into my home. There was no one at home except the maidservant. I went up to her and asked her, did he give me some money? I have to buy dates. She says, I don't have any money. Now, that was tragedy. So I started searching the cupboards, my parents' cupboards, searching for some money, some change to buy dates. And the more I couldn't find any money, the more maddening it was becoming because I wanted to eat dates. And I just had to get myself some money to buy them. After a complete search of the house, finding nothing, I came back out totally disappointed. And I thought, well, it's not going to happen. But then our man had settled down on the floor with his dates on his lap, and I could again smell them. And I said, no way, there is something I've got to do. So I went back in, and just then I spotted my father's library of books. And I went back and told him, I don't have the money, but what if I gave you a couple of books? Would you exchange that for dates? And he said, okay, depending on the books. Let me see the weight and so forth. So I went up, got into nice 2 solid leather-bound books out of a range of 12, which actually was a Britannica, the encyclopedia, which was my father's most favored set of books. And I hoisted out these 2 from the shelf, and I ran across to him, and he looked at it, and his eyes went all, cast. And he said, ho. And so he takes these 2 books, he weighs them, and he said, sure, I'll take these books and I'll give you some dates. And he gave me 2 large bag full of dates and immediately put the books onto his little basket had disappeared. Well, that didn't bother me. My friends and I sat down and we gorged on the dates, gorged on it. Come evening, my father notices that 2 books are missing. So he comes up and he asks me and he says, Anand, have you seen 2 books that were lying here? So I looked at him very innocently and I said, no, Abba, I have not. I have not seen. No, Dad, I haven't seen any books. Nothing. He thought maybe my mom would have kept it somewhere, whatever. And that passed. The next day I went off to school. And then I came back and my father was sitting near the library. He says, I'm going to ask you once. Are you aware that 2 books are missing and where they are? I said, no, Dad. He looked at me in the eye and he said, I'm going to ask you for the second time. Do you know what happened to these 2 books? I said, not at all, Dad. Not at all. No idea whatsoever. And then he said, I'm going to ask for the third and last time. Do you know what happened to these books? And I was adamant. And I said, no, Dad, not at all. Then my dad sat down. He looked at me very sadly, very, very sadly. And I was surprised because I've never seen my father in that sort of an expression. And he said, you know, son, the maidservant told me that you sold it for dates. I turned cold, absolutely cold, frozen. And then he looked down at his hands. He looked up again at me and told me, you know, son, I have never ever got upset with you for anything. I have never raised my voice at you. I have never ever raised my hands on you. What was the need for you to lie? Now, I couldn't answer that because that was right. My father was a very patient man, an extremely loving man, always encouraged me for everything I did. What stopped me from telling him the truth? It was a tough question. And then he said, you know, son, you know why you couldn't tell me the truth? Because of your fear of guilt. Because you feared the fact that you had made a mistake. And you were too scared to own up to it. It was your fear. And I think that was an amazing, amazing education of me that day. Because yes, most times we don't own up because of our own fears. Not the fears of being rebuked. Not the fears of being shouted at. Not the fears of not being accepted. But the fear that we know we have done something wrong. And too scared to own up. The fact is, ego plays a very, very important role in our lives in very, very different ways. And it actually tends to destroy the humanity in us. It is human to make mistakes. It's perfectly all right. But it is not human to be afraid. So my learning from this episode was, and always will be, kill your fears. Yes, we make mistakes. That's all right. But own up to it that we've made a mistake. You know the advantage in this? Number one, you will always be accepted as an honest man because you owned up to the mistake you have made. Number two, you'll be always accepted as a man who is fearless because you are not afraid to own up to the mistake you have made. And number three, most important, you will always be respected and loved because you are honest. And because you have the strength within you to own up to your faults and your mistakes. That was what I learned from this incident. And let me tell you, I still love dates. I still love dates. Well then, I hope this was interesting for you. Till the next time we meet, ciao for now. Have a wonderful life.